In this episode, a look at Kossoff Kirke Tetsu Rabbit, the only one of the bands formed during the free split of '71 to record an album.
Now, after Free had recorded Highway and the single My Brother Jake and the live album was due to come out, they decided to split up. And during that brief period when they were split up between 71 and 72, when they came back to record Free at last, they went off on their own. Now, Andy Fraser went off and formed a band called Toby, who did a little bit of recording, and they recorded a track called Travelling Man, which eventually ended up on the Free at Last album, but with some sort of mix-up, the Toby version of Travelling Man turned up on the German Free compilation album Pop Chronic, which is almost like a German version of the Free story, but a slightly different track listing. And of course that version of Travelling Man by Toby, I'm not 100% sure that they meant to use that or that it was an accident, but that is where you can hear the original version of Travelling Man by Andy Fraser and his band Toby. Paul Rodgers, of course, went off to form Peace, which had Mick Underwood in it, who was previously had a Quatermass and later on would be in Gillan with Ian Gillan. They recorded a few tracks which again didn't come out at the time but surfaced in that Songs of Yesterday free box set, which I spoke about in a previous video, a couple of videos ago. I'm a little bit confused now, I'm not sure what order these are coming out in, because as you can probably tell by the shirt, I've recorded 2 or 3 on the same evening, and I'm not quite sure what order I'm putting them out in yet. So it could have been the last video, it might have been the one 2 or 3 ago, but anyway, it was the one about the free box set Songs of Yesterday, and 2 or 3 tracks from that, including one that was later re-recorded by Bad Company, came out on that. The third splinter group featured both Simon Kirke and Paul Kossoff, and they, alone of the 3 groups, managed to put out an album, and that album was this: Kossoff Kirke Tetsu Rabbit. It's exactly what it says on the tin. Paul Kossoff, Simon Kirke, Rabbit Bundrick and Tetsu Yamuchi. Tetsu Yamuchi, of course, went on to be in The Faces, and John Bundrick for a while was in The Who, I think, or certainly played with The Who, and has had a stellar sort of solo career and done lots of other stuff as well. So this is they're the only one that actually put out an album. It's on Ireland, of course, as the Free albums were. And when I bought this, which was right back in the early 80s, it was impossible to get hold of, and it was quite expensive. Now you can see from the label there, I bought this at a record fair, and it's got on there Kossoff Rare LP, 25 quid. Now 25 quid in about 1982 or 81 when I bought this was a few quid, I'll tell you. But I didn't hesitate, and this is like the original of it as well, with the blue island inner and the palm tree label, and it's in super perfect. It's available on CD now, and I think it's probably been re-released on vinyl as well, but it's great. Now, one of the 2 interesting things about this is the songs are very, very free-like, so much so, in fact, that one of them, a track called Hold On, which is the final track on side 1, when they reformed, Free actually played that live. It's not available anywhere legally with Paul Rodgers singing it, but I've got some bootlegs with it on, and he does an absolute wonderful job of it. And it was also recorded again by Maggie Bell on her solo album Suicide Sal, I think it was, which also featured a version of Wishing Well, which was obviously from the Free album, a couple of albums after they'd reformed. So what have we got on here? We start off with Bluegrass, and we get Sammy's Alright. Then we start to get to things that people might know. The thing to point out here is the vocal duties are shared mostly between John Bundrick and Simon Kirke. if you've listened to Simon Kirke's later solo albums, you listened to him singing before, and the same if you ever listened to Andy Fraser singing, you can tell that they have been in a band with Paul Rodgers because they've learned from him. They've picked up things, phrasing and ways of this. And you can just tell. I'm not going to try for a minute to suggest that Simon Kirke or Andy Fraser had the same sort of voice as Paul Rodgers, who could sing as well as he did, but you can tell that they've worked with him on a day in, day out basis for a big chunk of time in their sort of formative years, if you like, while they're learning their track, because they picked up so much stuff like it, and you can just tell straight away there's the stamp of the free sound and the Paul Rodgers sound all over Simon Kirke and Andy Fraser. Obviously Andy Fraser isn't on this, so I'm just going off a bit of a tangent there. The other half of the vocals are done by Rabbit Bundrick. Now, at this point, John Bundrick, who was known as Rabbit, wasn't in Free yet. When they reformed back as the Four after this, and Tetsu Yamuchi and Rabbit Bundrick were out of the equation for a while. After they'd done the Free at last album, Andy Fraser decided that he couldn't stay in Free any longer, and he left. Now, of course, at that time as well, there's a lot going on with Koff, and he couldn't play a lot of the times, and he wasn't as good as he should have been, or he wasn't well enough to play and whatever. Sometimes Paul Rodgers was having to play quite a lot of the guitar parts. So the decision was made then, after they recorded this, Kossoff Kirke Tetsu and Rabbit, both Tetsu and Rabbit were brought into the Free fold, if you like, because so they were on the Heartbreaker album, with Tetsu playing the bass and John Bundrick playing the keyboards, which took a little bit of the strain away, maybe from Kossoff, gave them a slightly different sound, didn't rely too heavily on the guitar sound. Now, John Bundrick is a great songwriter. He is a wonderful keyboard player. He is a great singer to a degree. The one issue that I've got is one of the few vocalists I know whose accent comes across in his singing. He's got a very, very heavy Texan accent, and sometimes in the quite most of some of these songs you just think, oh no, that voice doesn't quite sound right. But what I will say to you is, after you've listened to it for a few times, or a few years maybe, you get used to it and you sort of quite end up liking it. And so now I'm quite happy listening to John Bundrick singing, but he certainly was anyway, probably not so pronounced now, but back in those early days he had got one of the most heavily accented sort of singing voices that you'd ever heard. Because don't forget, I mean, Paul Rodgers is from the northeast, but there was never a hint of like Geordie accent, was there, in the singing in Free. But Rabbit Bundrick, it's Texas everywhere, and that is definitely something that makes this album sound different to the Free albums. When Simon Kirke is singing, you can almost think this is like Free, but they've let Simon Kirke sing. As soon as John Bundrick is singing, it's a very different thing altogether. And it's interesting that although John Bundrick did sing live with Free, he didn't do a great deal of singing other than maybe a little bit of backing vocals on Heartbreaker. Anyway, get back to this after we've done that. What happens next? After we've got Bluegrass and Sammy's Alright, the first two songs, both written by John Bundrick and what's his song name as well. Then you get Anna with Simon Kirke singing. Now the interesting thing here is, this is the same Anna, this is the same track that turned up on the second Bad Company album, Straight Shooter. It's a very different version. This is a far more sort of countrified, sort of early 70s version, whereas the Straight Shooter one, which of course was only 4 years later, was a lifetime in those days though, and that's got a far more polished rock sound to it. But this is a really good sort of early version of that with Simon Kirke singing. It's far more sort of country folkified than the later Bad Company version. Then you get the instrumental Just for the Box, which was on the Free Story album, so that's been around for people to listen to for quite a long time. That's a great Kossoff instrumental. Then you get Hold On, the track we've spoken about before, which they incorporate into the Free set when they reformed, with Paul Rodgers singing it. You get on to side 2, and then you kick off with another 2 John Bundrick tracks, Fool's Life and Yellow House, and they're both brilliant. They've got lovely melodies. They're really, really, really great songs, and they are in the mould of Free, but with a Texan voice singing them. And this is a great album. If you can track, it's easy to get hold of now. You can get it on CD for probably £5 or £6. Probably still cost you a few quid to get an original vinyl like this, but it's probably been given the old music on vinyl treatment or something, and you can probably pick up a 180 gram new copy now. Anyway, after that you get Dying Fire, which is another Simon Kirke song, and then you get I'm on the Run, another John Bundrick song, and that one again was incorporated into the Free live stuff in 72, 73 with John Bundrick singing it and Paul Rodgers playing the guitar. So that's got more sort of Free connotations as well. The final track is potentially the most interesting because it's a track that a lot of people don't realise. It's called Colours, and it's written by Paul Kossoff and Elliot Burgess. Now the interesting thing here is Paul Kossoff is doing the singing. Now, as far as I'm aware, it's just about the only recorded track that he did a sing on. He was supposed to sing on that track, Backstreet Crawl. There are lyrics to it which are actually printed. I know they're on the remastered CD. I can't remember if they're on the back of the real album cover. I think they might be. But he was supposed to sing that, and then they never got around to laying the vocal down and turned it into an instrumental. So this is fascinating to hear Kossoff singing as well, which is great. So it's a wonderful album. This is a vital part of the Free catalogue for me. Although it's not got the name Free on it, this is as important. You could argue maybe that this is just as important as Heartbreaker, really, because a lot of people say, well, Heartbreaker, is that really a Free album? Kossoff's been relegated to being a session musician. Andy Fraser's gone. This is, to me, this is almost a part of the Free discography, although he isn't, if you know what I'm sort of trying to say. So if you get a chance to get hold of this, Kossoff Kirke Tetsu Rabbit. It's interesting that they obviously realised at the time that Kossoff was the main draw, because alphabetically it should be called Kirke, Kossoff, Tetsu and Rabbit, shouldn't it? Or no, it shouldn't. It should be Kirke, Kossoff, Rabbit and Tetsu. But everybody's been so used to saying Kossoff Kirke Tetsu and Rabbit for years, that's the only way it sounds right now. But yeah, that's what it was called, just Kossoff Kirke Tetsu and Rabbit. Pretty ordinary looking mundane cover, but the inside cover, it's quite pleasant. You can see pictures there of Simon Kirke, Kossoff, Tetsu and Rabbit. You've got the little Ireland logo thing on the back, which I've managed to cover up with my finger. I need a glamorous assistant for this job. And there you go, that's that bit. Great little album, that. Kossoff Kirke Tetsu and Rabbit still gets spinned on a regular basis. Or spun, should I say. You get spun or spinned. Spinned or spun. Still gets spun on a regular basis here at Custard Central. Kossoff Kirke Tetsu and Rabbit. Track it down and have a listen.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe, as it will help the channel to grow. See you soon.